There he is. First fish of the morning off this point. Crankbait. Not a bad largemouth. That's what we're doing this morning, folks. We're bass fishing. You haven't done it. I haven't done much of it the last couple of years, but it got you good, didn't it? Get in there. Open up, buddy. Hate it when that happens. But that's part of fishing. There he is, first one in the morning. Man, got him in the gill. And I don't know if he's jaws or in his gills. That sucks. Anyway, first one in the morning. Not a bad little guy. About a 14-incher. We'll let him go. So, 5XD blackback chartreuse crankbait right there, folks. Did it off this point right here. I kind of drifted off a little bit, but that's what happens when you catch fish. That's what I'm doing. I'm bass fishing this morning, ladies and gentlemen. Haven't done it in, I've done it twice this year, but I haven't done it in a couple years since then. But that's what I'm doing. He sucked that down and I missed him because I got too excited. I didn't wait till I felt the weight of the fish. Oh my. You can tell I have not bass fished in a while. Pretty good one here, guys. On my crankbait, he hit it hard. Where are you going? Yep. Well, he's not as good as I thought, but he's fine. Always got to watch those treble hooks on these crankbaits, guys. They will get you every time. They are dangerous. Gotta be careful with them. See how sharp they are? Look at that. And this is an old crankbait too. I've caught lots and lots of fish off of this one. But there you go, that's number 2. Not a huge one, but it is what it is. Again, running a crankbait off of the can't even get it out, off the bank back toward the boat out into a little bit deeper water. He's not as big as I thought he was. My drag slipped when I set the hook on him, so we'll turn him loose right there. There you go, buddy. Not really sure what that was about, but he gone. Okay, so back to it, I guess. That's fish number 2 on the crankbait. I missed one on a popar and I missed one on a plastic worm, so this might be about 5 years ago, I guess. The crankbait was the name of the game out here. And Josh and I really got into it. We really got into the fish. See, 5? Yeah, it's probably more like 4 years ago. We really got into the fish, and it was doing exactly what I'm doing here. You'd come up, pull up on one of these main lake points, and you'd work, not all the way into the cove, or neck, or whatever you call it, but out here along the edge, allowing this crankbait to dig into the bottom a little bit. With a pretty steady retrieve. We caught a lot of fish that way. Josh caught a real nice one out here. I guess that's probably about 4 years ago, about 8 pound, doing exactly this, except he did it off of a main lake point where there were several boathouses. Got me a dink here, guys. Oh, ooh. Switched up here, going down this bank, fishing my Texas rig plastic worm, but I'm using an 1/8 ounce. I picked up my Veritas, my heavier rod, because of the wind today. The lighter is not working. See, dink. So that's why I switched up to this. Get that hook out of me. There we go. Little guy, not very big. Adios, amigos. I tell you what, this bank right here, this is usually, back in the day, where Dad and I we'd fish out this bank and then we'd call it quits. But by the time we got down here with the equipment that we had, we'd been fishing for a long time. Then when I got my own boat, had my own outboard, you know, wasn't too worried about how far it was from the boat ramp. You know, Dad wanted to get home. We had Cardinal baseball to watch when I was a kid. My dad had to watch when he wasn't working. He wanted to watch baseball. It was fishing and Cardinal baseball when I was a kid. So anyway, I'm gonna keep fishing out this bank. Hope you keep hanging out with me. Hopefully I'll have a couple more fish to show you. Well, I ran down the lake to someplace I haven't been in a couple of years. But every time I come back here, as you see that old gravel boat ramp that's in disrepair, I'm reminded of my dad. Dad and I, this is where we put in. It's pretty close to home, and it's the only free ramp on Lake of Egypt. It's used to be a picnic, a campground, and a boat ramp area out here in the Shawnee National Forest. And got that turned up way too high, don't I? Anyway, we had a 14-foot Monarch John boat with a 7.5 horsepower Mercury and a 35-pound thrust Minn Kota trolling motor. We would put in that boat ramp right there, and we'd swing out wide, and we'd stop right there at that point, and we'd start fishing. And the only kind of fishing my dad did was Texas rig plastic worm. Occasionally he'd throw a white spinnerbait, but that was what our day consisted of. That was how we fished, and we did pretty good. But we probably could have done better if we had have, broadened our horizons a little bit. Maybe fished some crankbaits or some topwater stuff. But that wasn't what we did. We come down here and we plastic worm fished. So that was what we did. That was how I was taught to fish. And my rod and reel combo was a Abu Garcia 5500 C3 and a 6-foot medium action ugly stick rod with a pistol grip. It took me forever to get used to these longer handled rods because, when that's how I fished. So things changed over the years. Dad and I occasionally would come down here and we'd put in and we'd catfish in here, but we didn't have near the luck catfishing that we did bass fishing. And we used night crawlers and things of that sort for catfishing. We didn't have we didn't know about the stuff that I know now when it comes to catfishing. But that was something I wish my dad and I could have shared, was getting into catfishing. Although I would have never got him out on the Wren Lake, and I most definitely would have never got him out on the river. So, but every time I come down here, I'm reminded of my dad and our days of fishing. And I had friends I brought down here too. We would put my boat in right there, and we'd fish the exact same way, except sometimes we might go across the neck over there. Not very often though. Alright guys, another main lake point here, and I'm going to crank until I get around the corner. Then depending on how bad the wake is, I'm going to probably toss my plastic worm or a shaky head down this bank coming up here. I believe the appropriate name of this spot that I'm getting ready to fish is called Bethel Cove here on Lake of Egypt in southern Illinois. But if you look on Fishity and you type in Lake of Egypt, Illinois, it's Johnson County, you will see that Josh, you guys know him as a weekend angler and you've seen him in all of my videos so far, aptly named this Stapleton Cove for whatever reason. He went on this thing about 5 years ago of naming stuff after me and my dad on this lake, thinking it was funny. I don't know. I didn't. Whatever turns your buttons. But anyway, back to what I'm doing here. I'm cranking off this point, crankbait again. Trying to see if there's not a bass up here. It's right here on the main part of the lake, this point. The water I'm in right now is about 15.5 foot deep, so that is right on almost the limit of what my crankbait can reach. Got a couple of other places I'm going to throw it this morning too. One of our fish on the Helix 5 there, so they may or may not be bass, they may be crappie. A couple of those arches look like they might be cats. I've had luck catching channel cat right over there. That is about the only luck I've ever had catching channels out of this lake, and that was on chicken liver, and that was about 4 or 5 years ago when I used to come out here every free chance I got. There's one busted the surface. Got to make longer casts with these crankbaits to make sure you can get them down. You twist your arm off sometimes. It can be a, you know, an exhausting way to fish if you do it a lot. And if you do it for hours and hours, I couldn't even imagine throwing this all day at a tournament. Oh, I think I got one. Let me see. Yep, I sure. Oh, he spit it right there at the top of the water. Glad that was on video. I didn't get the hook set good on him. You have to set the hook a little bit with these crankbaits. You can't just think they're going to hook themselves up with them treble hooks. They, for the most part, do, but you gotta set the hook. Alright guys, had a little bit of camera trouble. Thought my SD card was full, which I thought was kind of weird. But anyway, I'm back to, I want to crank out this rock now that I got my boat repositioned. As I was trying to explain earlier, and I got washed up here, up there the water is about 6 foot, and then there's a ledge and it drops off. Down here, the boat right now is sitting in 16 foot of water. And there are fish on it. I did see them on the graph. I did physically see them. Don't think I've got supersonic eyes or something. But what I'm doing is I'm throwing this crankbait up in the shallow water and working it down that ledge back to the boat, hoping to pick up the stray largemouth that might be on it, if those are indeed largemouth. Any day spent on the water is better than a day working, by the way. And that's what we're doing here. Bass fishing. You're not going to catch any 50-pounders, but it is a lot of fun, and I enjoy doing it a lot. Got more boat wash coming back. Somebody went by a minute ago. Oh, I think I got that one. Yeah, I did. Ooh. Ready? That's a little guy. Little guy. Yep. Barely had that little fish hooked. Little guy. So I've only caught one on a soft plastic this morning. Tells me the fish are still pretty aggressive and they're chasing their dinner. Instead of looking for something just sitting there, they're chasing it. So bass are predators and they are aggressive. They do like to chase. Alright guys, well that's about all the time we had this morning here on HS Outdoors. I appreciate you tagging along as I show you how I like to crankbait fish out here on Lake of Egypt, and of course the one fish on a plastic worm. Some of my favorite bassing techniques. Anyway, as always, I appreciate you watching. Like, share, subscribe. If you're on a mobile device, hit that little bell. It'll let you know anytime I put out a new video or go live. Thanks for watching HS Outdoors, and if you've got a little time, why don't you spend it in the outdoors?